Right, enough of that. Time to get on with the show proper. And this week, we're going to be kicking things off, as always, with the most important part, the indie of the week. And this week, it's Eagles of Empire, which is an indie we'd visited way back at the start. May actually be one of the very first ones we did. But I've been advised to give them a little tickle, have a look at what they're doing, because they've got plans for this year. Grand plans. So, the delightful Eagles of Empire is a Franco-Prussian skirmish game. Obviously, the Franco-Prussian War, interesting war. It more or less set up the evolution of Germany as a nation and power, and therefore, consequently, would also set up a couple of big wars in the following century. You may remember them as World War I and or II. Discuss. But it uses a bespoke skirmish system. So the interesting thing for me is the actual system that they've created or crafted, if you will. We'll get to the war campaign in a moment. But the rules themselves come via the medium of 2 drill books. So book 1, infantry, book 2, everything else. As the man says, anything that's not just slogging around on foot, anybody with a name and a hat gets to go in the other book. But the rules themselves are relatively compressed, relatively simple. But the part and parcel of the system is really creatively done. So obviously with a lot of games you have command and control or some form of fog of war that sort of kicks in. But then list building and points are separate. It's something you do before you come to the table. You work out what you're using for the scenario, whether it's a point off or whether it's a specific order of battle for what you're playing. This has that to a certain extent, but also when you're playing, there's an economy within the game itself. So the system uses objectives to be held on the battlefield that then provide you with currency that you then use to bring in additional reinforcements or buy.
Sort of like your old PC RTS games then? Capture a point to gain.
Yes.
Yeah.
You gain resources and then you choose to spend your resources, and your resources could be, well, I'm holding this point, therefore I'm going to want to bring in more additional reinforcements to help me secure the point or push on to a new one. But they're also used to buy victory points. So you're having to go, do I push for the VPs? Or do I push for the reinforcements, hoping that I'll be able to hold what I've got and therefore use that to push on, get another objective, hold those, and then start generating the victory points. But maybe it means your opponent's getting ahead of you while that's ongoing. And then you can also use them to bring in, I think, name characters and use them for every nation has a tactical doctrine, something that is unique to Denmark, Prussia, France, whoever it happens to be. And that helps them play in the style of the military of the period. So, sudden boost in combat capability via the objective points as well is just absolutely fascinating that they've sort of combined all of this within a very tight little rule set that's just backed up with a couple of doctrine cards or the actual minutia of the rule system itself is sort of carried between these things. I don't want a quick view. I want you to open. Why you no open? Sorry.
A question, Jerry. So
yes.
Are these folks just solely focused on the rule side of things, or are they producing minis as well?
No, they do miniatures as well.
Okay.
But the rules themselves, I think, are an intriguing and unique thing, because obviously these days Perry's also do Franco-Prussian. So and yeah, there's a ton of other companies, Wargames Foundry and the like as well, also have them. So when they're selling things, they're selling them for this game, which means you're probably paying slightly more than if you were just buying the miniatures straight from X, Y, or Z, because they also contain the unit cards and doctrine cards for those units. So anyway, yes,
that makes sense.
But then they also have things like the specific named officers for various things. And recently, the Army of Loire campaign book has come out. I think this came via the medium of Kickstarter, and it's now sort of on its, there you go. It's now available for purchase by the hoi polloi who didn't get involved in the Kickstarter. I do like how the system itself is very focused on the historical accuracy of the period. So in this case, the Army of Loire campaign is, I think, 12 linked scenarios. Yeah, 12 historical scenarios that follows the chronological campaign. And it's very nicely presented as well.
It looks like it has a lovely art style too.
I really like it's one of these ones where I'm looking at it going, I'd really like to pick them up to see them. But I don't want to buy into Franco-Prussian War because I don't have enough time for what I am doing. But
how big potentially are the forces involved? Like miniature count and stuff?
They're very small, John. Oh God, they're small. I mean, when you get right down to it, I could probably get away with a couple of armies because it's small scale skirmish. It's not full.
It's not rank and file
en masse
as such.
Yeah.
So if this is something you want to dip your toe into, this will be a good choice because you're not going to overload yourself, maybe.
That's kind of what I was thinking, because
I'd say,
I've kind of wanted to get into that period of warfare anyway, but the likes of the Napoleonic Wars and stuff like that just feel like the big rank and file games feel like a massive investment to me as someone coming into it. But this, with that kind of classic real-time strategy kind of feel to it has a certain appeal to me. I'm looking at it. Plus, I like the Franco-Prussian War because, as you say, like it sets up what becomes Germany, and then what the First World War solidifies as Germany, as the German Empire or whatever, and then just the history goes where it goes after that. So,
things happened.
Yeah, it's an interesting blending of the period. I mean, it occurs around the same time that the American Civil War is kicking off, so the weaponry is the same, although obviously they're still mostly rocking the spanking semi-Napoleonic-esque uniforms and looking very fashionable. These are Danes, but there's a prime example. So a box set for the Danes is 16 figures for 26.
That is really reasonable.
That's not horrible.
It's
and then how much of your army would that build out for you?
A third, maybe. I'm looking at the lists and stuff. They're looking sort of 30-ish figures, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. Then some of it will come down to the scenario you're playing as well. But that's
so basically you could get a starter force for under the ton.
You could get playing for under the ton, pretty much.
Well, if I get the Call to Arms starter, it is £1 less than 100. You're going to do this thing where you're not going to open for me again, aren't you? Because you hate me. Why does Quick View exist? Huh? Why is this even a thing?
I have to shout at someone for their web development for that.
I'm saying nothing. But there's a prime example. So 4 boxes.
And the book.
So starter set, 2 box French, 2 box of Prussian. So 64 miniatures, so about 30 aside. And then the 40-page rule book. So the drill one, the infantry book, to get you started off with it. Which is altogether
for a starting point, it's not bad.
You even get a little Prussian
for a starter point on a new historical era that you're not fully wanting to engage in. I know. You're gonna. But
I could do that.
I mean, Halloween's coming,
the thing is,
Jerry.
like, there's not. I know there's a few skirmish games out for this sort of period anyway, but nothing has really jumped out at me as being, yes, pick me up and play. This, I think Justin might be in the same boat as me. That whole, it has that Dawn of War feel, that Dawn of War / old RTS kind of feel to it.
Yeah, but compared to other ones that I've seen, this feels really cohesive for getting you started. You know, everything you need is there in one shot. Diving into new historical areas where you're unsure of the actual history can be really daunting if you haven't had the time to actually go, okay, I need to do all my research before I buy my minis.
Down to painting 150 French, you know, for a rank and file game that I may not even enjoy the first time I take it out, you know. But that's partly me. That's me not researching before I buy stuff.
Well, you know, it's certainly one way to go with it, to be fair. The nice thing is there are a dose of videos running through. There's a couple of flick-throughs of the books done by Eagles of Empire on YouTube, where he flicks through book 1 and book 2 individually. So they're about 20 minutes long and roughly goes through, you know, here's this bit, and this is how this works, and here's this bit, and this is how this works. So gives you a good overview of the sort of mechanics without actually running through it. And then there's some Let's Plays with apparently some more due as well in the not too distant future. And I think there's a plan for another campaign later on this year, Beyond the Wire. So there's Mayor von Halden. I will say the figures themselves are absolutely gorgeous.
I'm enjoying this one here.
Are we talking metal, resin, plastic?
Yes, metal, like God intended.
Again, I don't mind that being small skirmish. You know, I obviously would prefer plastic, but I mean, yeah, I know.
I don't know. Metal has a nice feel to it when you're playing with it on the table. I like the half of metal in some
because you haven't varnished it properly, then you have to start repainting things. That is a problem.
That's a me problem.
That's an interesting one there. If I get this to open, will you open for me? Who knows? No, that's not the one I wanted. The basing itself is ones, twos, and threes, essentially. So I think it's one of those ones where you see some people doing it on occasion for figure removal. You know, you can swap in, swap out. I just like somebody's just baked it in right at the start going, we know you all do this, so why not just go the whole hog and just get your bases as per, and then that's, you know, a squad or a section or whatever it happens to be, bunked up in several sort of constitute parts. So I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, I could be tempted into that because that box set there, that starter deal, like it gets you 2 forces and you haven't spent a lot of money, and it gets you the rules.
Yeah. And again, if you're splitting it with a bait, that makes it.
I mean, the thing is, in here,
getting into.
I wouldn't split it with someone because I'd rather have both the forces rather than bring them up together.
And just run out yourself.
I know they're done.
That's fair.
Rather than say wait for Shay to paint something.
It's a good way of doing it. Yeah.
Not going to happen, is it?
That's just throwing Shay onto the throwing
He's
Shay
not here
right
to
onto
defend
that
himself.
Job. That is the best.
Is that ACW coming?
Absolutely the best way to do it. I
heard he painted
some,
but he hasn't finished anything.
Hopefully. No.
All I need to get is some out, because we've got some of the community coming in later in the year to play a weekend's worth.
Yeah, but they're bringing stuff with
them.
No,
you just don't tell them they're doing that. You tell them we're relying on you to make sure that stuff's done.
Put the pressure on.
It's definitely a way to do it, I suppose. As you can see, the Prussian and French armies are comprehensive. So your Turcos, your line infantry, Zouaves, various style of cavalry as well, from cuirassiers to hussars, and all the artillery that's fit to print. So you really don't have to go anywhere else, which is great.
You can kind of shop elsewhere for perhaps alternative posing or alternative sculpts.
Well, here's a question. Because you have like little stat cards and stuff, do they do those as like a faction deck?
I think we've seen them, yeah.
There are, yeah, there are decks in there. But I mean, getting your hands on some little Frenchy skirmishers just looks spot on.
They do look delightful.
Yeah, they're lovely. Look at that poor bugger lying in the snow. He's going to get piles. Or frostbite. Or frostbitten piles. Oh, feel bad for him.
Jerry, why?
At least after a while, he wouldn't be able to feel them.
That's true. Don't know if that's a comfort or not.
You are literally freezing your ass off there.
At least it wouldn't hurt when you said
it. Go. Little officer with the French infantry doctrine. And there's a prime example of the command point spend that you need from generating from your resources. So you can go up in various grades.
It is an interesting aspect of having an evolving force on the table instead of it just being, I've brought my army, I've worked it out, I've set it down. Being able to tweak and twist mid-game is something
I think that's what I was
kind
of aiming at, the whole, stuff changes as you gain points.
The RTS-ness, yeah.
Right. And depending on how the battle's going, you can leverage your force in different ways.
This could be my way in. I mean, it's the prices alone set the bar in that point where it's not huge to get into. That's very important.
There you go. So cards by themselves are $350 per regiment, essentially. So
fair.
If you're not buying if you're not picking up the actual miniatures from here, then or if you've already got miniatures, then you can sling them in that way.
Yeah.
What's that? Full deck for infantry is $950.
That's not bad.
Don't know if that's just those 3 or 4 units, or if it's the whole.
Well, if you're only running 3 to 4 different types of unit per side, yeah,
but there's an awful lot of different infantry types there. So, that, considering the individuals are $350 a touch, I don't know if that's all. Anyway, I digress. People can find that out for themselves if they hook around long enough, I'm sure. So yeah, French and Prussians, really nice. Even a touch of the Austrian, if you want to branch out. So I'd like the fact that they've sort of skirted the extremes. So you've got the Danes for the Celtic, prior to the Franco-Prussian, and then the Austrian-Prussian War as well. So again, same sort of thing. A small amount of figures is all you really need. And when you're playing a niche game or niche period with a game like this, it means not having to go hunting is always good. So not having to find out who does Austrian-Hungarian line infantry or your Austro-Hungarian artillery and Jaegers and so on and so forth. You can just grab them one and done from here. You too can upgrade your veteran. Don't upgrade your artillery to veteran. They'll just get lost in the mountains somewhere. Then you'll rue the points and the objectives that you've lost. Apart from that, on the website, there's also, as you can see, some interesting bits and pieces for putting your armies together. I do like the fact that color plates are in the rules, because that just makes life so much easier to get your hands on. So if you are planning on having a nosy, you're not going to open these, are you? No. Oh, you opened that way. There we go. You too can see some of the figures up closer, which is nice.
They do look like they'll paint up really easily.
Oh God, yeah. Trying to think. Oh, it was Napoleonic Prussians that you front ranked.
That's right. Yeah,
40k, wasn't it, John?
They were. Wargames Foundry, I want to say they were, with a bit of Perry stuff mixed in. They're over there, and I'm looking at them, but I kind of want to do the historical ones now.
Yeah,
Oh, there's a bad day.
Well, that's what happens whenever you go running
It's
around
just a
carrying
flag,
standard.
mate.
Somebody's going to come and stab you up. Flags.
Even back then, they were worried about
Oh,
the
yes.
flags.
Yes, some cannon.
Yeah. I think
You
it's
could build some interesting gaming tables for this as well.
well, if you build them for Napoleonics, you can just keep running right over the top then.
Mm.
Multi-period, you can get all the way up to World War II with them. As long as you don't cannon the ever-living bejesus out of them too much. Welcome to the 19th century. They scream as they attack you. But yeah, the Eagles of Empire rule sets and miniatures, I think, for the Franco-Prussian, definitely worth taking a look at. Also, keep the eye out on the old YouTube channel to see those Let's Plays, the book flip-throughs, and to also see what else is coming, because I've been assured there are more Let's Plays on the way if you want to see exactly how the game sort of develops and progresses. I think it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Right. Let's have a look at some news.